The truth is often a very unpleasant thing to hear, but here is the truth. We are on our own. No one is coming to save us. Yes, folks, I believe that the quicker you can get to the nub of an issue, the truth of an issue, the bedrock of an issue, the quicker you can start to develop some form of solution to that problem. There's no point in pretending X is Y and Y is X and Z is A and B is C. That does nothing other than waste precious time when sometimes time is of the essence. Now, this video is directed and aimed as much at my esteemed cousins in the UK. I'm talking about the proud men and women of England. I'm talking about the proud men and women of Scotland and of Wales and indeed of Northern Ireland. I'm talking also of my esteemed cousins in the loyalist community. This is a talk for all of you, and it's aimed at all of you as much as it is for my own fellow countrymen, the dyed-in-the-wool, heart-beating, strong Irish men and women. Now, I'm sure I don't need to tell or remind any of you watching this that we here on these islands, we of proud tradition, we of proud heritage, we of proud culture, differing cultures, differing traditions, but all one overarching family. We are facing an existential threat. We are witnessing, we are living out in real time the dissolution, the dilution of our own ways of life, our cultures, our unique heritages, our unique histories, our unique peoples. It's all being erased. And what's most frightening about all of this is that it's not coming through the usual channels if you study history of invasion, of armies romping across borders, raping and pillaging and killing all before them, setting fire to everything. No. This is a whole new paradigm. It's a whole new way. And it's no less destructive, but it's much more covert. It's much more subtle. No longer is invasion and the erasure of a people and a tradition and a culture a caveman's cudgel. Today, in today's world, it's now a surgeon's scalpel. It's so subtle that many people, if not most people, with enough coercion from their TVs and radios, don't even know it's happening. That's the art of subtlety. That's the art of modern invasion. But we few for the moment, we're alive to this danger. We see it happening. We know it's happening. We know what's going on. We're not blind. And we, I and you, quite possibly, are desperately trying to figure out the extent of what's going on, the speed of what's going on, and how can it be in some way tempered, in some way fixed, in some way reversed. This is the challenge, because we know full well that our own leaders are willfully cheerleading this, are willfully partaking in this, are willfully egging this on. In fact, they're encouraging this. They have, to all intents and purposes, to my mind, become the modern day collaborators with the modern day invasion. And let's not forget, they have all the toys. They've managed to round up all the toys in the playground. They have all the weapons, metaphorically and physically. They have got all the apparatus they need, including the mainstream media, which is a main part, the legal situation, which is another main part, the academic situation, which is growing all their apparatchiks as if in a greenhouse. They've got all that under wraps. If you're going to build a modern day, subtle, surgeon scalpel version of a totalitarian society, then you need your disciples. You need your apparatchiks. And that's what the universities are for. They pump them out every year, and out they go, fully inculcated in the message. But the question really is, how do we who are alive to the dangers, who are alive to the crisis that's unfolding, how do we react? How do we fight back? How do we combat this seeming tsunami of governmental, globalist corporation, EU empire, steamrolling vitriol, and seemingly unstoppable force? Well, that's something we grapple with. I do. I'm sure you do. On an ongoing basis. And two things have happened in the last week which have caused me pause for thought. They've caused me, because I'm always thinking about how we can move forward, how we can coalesce, how we can find some kind of common cause. I'm talking with the people specifically on these islands, how we can fight back and somehow manage to come back from being the partisans in the hills to revolutionizing ourselves back into what we were just until recently. As I see it, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We just want to restore sanity. So, what of these two things that caused me pause for thought? Well, one is pretty Irish, Ireland-centric. The other is UK, Britain-centric. And let's start on home turf, shall we? If any of us, and I was probably in a way guilty of this, were thinking that the new administration, the new election of Donald Trump, a hellraiser, a bull in a china shop, a man who was determined to get stuck into problems that nobody else would touch. Well, if any of us were talking or thinking that Donald Trump's new administration would take the air out of the balloon of Ireland's Ponzi scheme economy, which he did talk about in various speeches on the campaign trail. We're living here in a Ponzi scheme economy where major US multinationals are essentially using Ireland with the government's tacit approval, indeed encouragement, as a Cayman Islands, a more upgraded version, or if you like, uprated version, a more genteel version of the Cayman Islands. We're just a tax haven. We've become, in a way, the gentleman's tax haven. Well, where's your head office? Well, it's in the Cayman Islands. That's bad. Where's your head office? Well, it's in Dublin, in Ireland. Oh, well, that's all very well and good. A wonderful people and a wonderful country. You see how it works. Cayman Islands, Ireland, oh, that's a wonderful place and wonderful people. But essentially, it's just the same thing. Apple, Pfizer, all these Microsofts and all these other various companies are not here because they love the Irish and want the Irish to thrive on the world stage. No, they're here because they pay bugger all taxes. Let's not make any bones about that. Now, any of us, possibly me included, who are thinking, well, this new Trump administration, they will in some way rein back all this largesse, all this Ponzi scheme nonsense, and in some way clip the wings of our Irish politicians who have all this free and easy funny money to throw around at mass immigration and at hostels, hotels, castles, B&Bs, 4- and 5-star hotels to cram in people from the third world and pay for their bed, board, health care, schooling, and whatever else they might need, shoes, etc., et al. If we thought the Americans, the Trump administration, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, were going to ride in on a white horse and clip the wings of our government, this St. Patrick's Day handing over the bowl of shamrock routine shtick should disabuse you immediately of that. It was essentially like something straight out of 1995. It was all genteel, it was all proper, it was all smiles. Now, I can't possibly know or say anything about what happened behind closed doors, but for the cameras, it was a complete resounding endorsement of Micheál Martin, the Irish regime, who had and has and does castigate Donald J. Trump from morning till noon, till dusk, till night. Them and their mainstream media lackeys. They've never written one positive word about the man. But if you looked at the shenanigans, and it was shenanigans from St. Patrick's Day, it was all about what socks J.D. Vance was wearing, and a load of smiles and nods and winks and nudges in the Oval Office. If Irish patriots were hoping, were thinking, were possibly dreaming that this would be a pivotal moment where the Irish regime would be somehow rebuked, knocked back and chastised, or mildly nudged in a proper direction, well, that didn't happen. In fact, nothing happened. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that there's no white horse, there's no Donald Trump waving the standard coming to our rescue. He's not coming. He's not coming. Why should he come anyway? He's not our president. The man has his plate full of problems that he's got to solve over there. So let's stop deluding ourselves that the American administration, be it under more understanding patronage, it's not coming to rescue us. It's not coming. It's not happening. There's too much money at stake, and there's too many Irish American votes also at stake. And they did vote for Trump. Realpolitik is realpolitik. My friends, forget about the new American administration coming to our aid, riding in on a white horse like the cavalry in the old westerns to save the day, to save us from a regime intent on diluting us to the point where we're just like the Aztecs, we're museum pieces. That's not going to happen. We are very much on our own, just like our ancestors were. But what of my UK cousins? Well, what about you? What caused me pause for thought in your calendar? Well, I'll tell you what did. Reform is becoming a very big force in modern UK politics. And at its helm is the one and only, the indomitable UKIP Brexit guy, Nigel Farage. A one-man machine, a one-man army, one could say. And he's pushed himself to the head of reform, and he is a man of very definite talents, a man of very definite persona, a man of very definite political acumen. But what I saw in the last week, over the last week, 10 days, in relation to one of his other MPs, Rupert Lowe, who has gained a lot of traction and a lot of fans and a lot of admiration from the British public, from the patriotic British public, some of who I am delighted to say watch this channel. Well, the fallout has been something that needs to be analysed, that needs to be looked at. Because I've watched this happen, and I was a fan of Rupert Lowe. I watched Rupert Lowe, didn't know who he was in the beginning, but I watched some of his speeches, some of his podcasts, and some of his interviews, and I thought, well, here's a man of substance. Here's a man who's in his late 60s. He's been around the block a number of times. He knows a lot of things. He's a man you would want to have on your team because he's a man of vast life experience and a man of conviction, and dare I say it, a patriotic man, an old school patriotic man. But what happened to him? And this, another road to Damascus moment. The Reform Party essentially politically assassinated him. They politically gunned him down in the street. And this, I believe, was fully under the, if not instigation, certainly under the gaze, under the watchful eye of Nigel Farage. Your would-be saviour, your would-be totem pole, your would-be man in the breach. But the more I watched and looked into it and waded into these waters, the more I saw that Nigel Farage, a good operator and a man I have a lot of respect for in many ways, he did deliver Brexit. And sometimes you have a leader like this who can lead you up to the gates of heaven, lead you up to the gates of the promised kingdom, the promised land. But that's it. They cannot lead you into the kingdom and make the kingdom what it should be, bolster its borders and make it into something tangible. There are certain people whose shtick, whose whole bag of talents lies in the revolution. You're the revolution guy. You're not the run the promised land guy. A true leader is both. A true leader, in my eyes, in my view, is the guy or the woman who doesn't see the revolution just as a revolution. They see it just as a means to an end to get to the promised land. But their focus is the promised land, not the revolution. For people, and I suspect from what I've seen over the past week with Rupert Lowe, and when I looked into it, there was a string of Rupert Lowes. There was a myriad of Rupert Lowes. It seems anyone who got into Farage's network, Nigel Farage's network, and got too popular, they seem to be cast aside, they seem to be downgraded, they seem to be expunged. Nigel Farage is a one-man band. Now, he's certainly got his talents, and very, very copious talents, but he's a one-man band. Nigel Farage may lead you to the gates of heaven, but he can't bring you across. He's the wrong man. I watched an interview where he essentially was talking to an interviewer and was extolling the fact that the Muslim population of Britain, they're breeding more, they have more kids, they're more coming in every year in bigger and bigger numbers. So essentially, we just have to get used to the fact that they're just going to take over. Now, if ever I heard a statesman and a member of parliament in verbal terms run up the white flag, this was that moment. This was that moment. Well, what are you going to do? It is what it is. They're coming in. They're having more kids. We're just going to have to deal with it until they just take over. Stop with that. Stop it. If any of your leaders, your political leaders, your MPs, your prime ministers, your county councillors are saying that, then immediately stop listening and seek every means you're able to muster to get rid of those people, because that is defeatism. That is running up the white flag. And no, in human terms, and wherever humans are engaged and involved, there is nothing set in stone. That's the human condition. Nothing is foretold. Nothing is an inevitable. Humans are involved, so everything is up for grabs. It just depends who's in charge, who's pulling the levers, who's pressing the buttons, and what courage and conviction those people may or may not have. We don't do white flags on this channel. So to sum things up, what's my takeaway from all that's gone on over the past week, 10 days? Well, here's my view on the situation as it currently stands. We here in Ireland, we can't rely on some kind of late cavalry charge from the new American administration to come and try and set things aright here in the Emerald Isle. It's not happening. They're not coming to our rescue. And as far as my UK friends and cousins are concerned, Nigel Farage isn't your man. He may well play a part in where you're trying to get to, but he isn't the right guy. He's not the right man for the job that needs doing. He's not coming to save you and to set your store aright. The plain and simple truth of the matter is, we are on our own. We have to fix this with what we've got, which is us. The only people we can truly rely on is ourselves. We've got to do this from the ground up with little more than word of mouth, social media, and a coming together of like-minded, patriotic people. We need to build our own coalitions. We need to rewrite the script. We need to start collaborating with each other, passing around ideas and coming up with better and better ideas. The forces ranged against us are immense. Let's be under no illusion. This is not an easy ask, but we can only rely on ourselves to get the job done. We need to start talking to each other. We need to start building alliances. We need to start reaching out, not to administrations in other places. We need to start reaching out to the secret weapon, the diaspora. There is a massive diaspora of Irish people, certainly in the United States and in other places, Australia as well, and New Zealand, and many, many other places around the world. We need to get them on board. And the same with the UK. You need to reach out to all allies that you have on your side. Find them, seek them out, bring them on board. We need to work together as we are both, I believe, heading to the same destination, and more importantly, we are both facing the same threat of ultimate annihilation. If we do not do anything, and if we do not succeed, my dear friends, no one is coming to save us. This is on us. We have to do this ourselves.